In hour 2, the printout that I'm going to give the students, if you tap here, it will bring up a PDF which you can print. I will be showing you that in a minute. But the first thing I do in every hour is I review what we have learned in the past hour. I basically use, I basically just use the verb study. I just want to see if they are able to have a good command of the pattern. And I'll say, do you want to study? They say, I want to study. Did he have to go? He had to go. Didn't they like to study? They didn't like to study. Do you know how to study? I know how to study. So these are, I basically go through these, make sure that they have a feeling for the positive and the negative. I'll ask a couple of questions here. After I'm fairly secure that they have a grasp of this, I then have them go to the patterns which you'll be learning today, which you can print out as I showed you before. These are the 6 patterns that we'll be learning. I take them one at a time. In the beginning, when we first study them, I just use the verb study, very simply. And I go through, do you plan to go? Don't you plan on going? They have to give me the same tense and whether it's a positive or a negative. So if I say, don't you plan on going? They have to say, I don't plan on going. There's no need to say yes or no. It's just not necessary while we're studying here. In conversation, yes, but not during our practice. The variations of go can be used. You go to study, you go back to study, you go in, you go out. So, do you go out to study? I go out to study. Didn't you go out to study? I didn't go out to study. With come, don't you come back to meet her? I don't come back to meet her. Did he come back to study? He came back to study. So I will keep going back and forth until I get a feeling that they know that. At first they'll begin to stumble a little bit. Making mistakes is perfectly okay. Mistakes provide you an opportunity for you and the student to learn. You learn through your mistakes. So it's good to make mistakes because you can correct them very easily. So, for example, if I say, do you plan on going? And they answer, I plan going, it's wrong. Why? Because there's no on. Why is on necessary? I have no idea, but if it's not there, it doesn't sound right. I then move over to a couple of questions here with what, where, why, when. I try to stay away from why and how questions because in about 6 or 7 hours we'll begin to learn some variations of answering those. So I try to steer away from those. But the reason we study these in the second hour is the question-making format is the same as we had in hour 1 of do, did, will, don't, didn't, won't. The aim of the class is for the students to try to talk as much time as I do. If I can accomplish that, I'm very, very happy at the end. So, what I do to try to enhance that is this. I have this let me see, wait 1 second here. This is a printout that I get for the students. This is a PDF, which I'll show you where to get later. Basically, you can cut this in 8 and you give them to the students. One student gets this, one this, and so on. Each of these you'll see is different. The reason that I do this is that the question-making skill is a bit more difficult than just answering the question. So I want to give one of these each to a student. I'll give one here after I've cut them. I'll give it to a student. I'll have them stand up, and I will say the pattern. I plan to. He has to ask a question. Does he plan to go? The students say he plans to go. Didn't he plan to go? He didn't plan to go. Won't he plan to go? He won't plan to go. Will he plan to go? He will plan to go. Did he plan to go? He planned to go. Don't you plan to go? I don't plan to go. It will help him to make questions and for the students to answer. The reason I made them all different is because I don't want the students to anticipate the question in the tense. I want them to pay attention. I don't want them going to sleep while other people are working during the class. I want to get them engaged. The what, where, who, and when question is here. Once again, I stay away from the why and the how question because the answers are a bit more complicated to do, and we'll handle that later. With who, I have an S and an O. The reason for this is because sometimes who refers to the subject of the answer, sometimes the object of the answer. So who went, the answer is I went. Who did you meet? I met him. So there's a little difference here in the question. So I'll ask the students to make up a question here. So what does he plan to do? Where did he plan to go? Who won't want to go? Who don't you want to meet? When will he want to go? These the students will be making with the pattern that I give them to facilitate the conversation. So when we look at each of these that we'll give to them, it will look like this. There's 6 combinations here. It varies between different cards. And if you want to keep these for a long time, instead of printing them out for every class, you can laminate them and just hand them out in the class. Once again, after one person finishes the routine, have somebody else stand up. Everybody in the class should be able to speak. Whether you're speaking slowly or fast, the more you talk, the more comfortable you become, you lose your shyness, and you have a bit more fun with it. The patterns, the way that I tell the students that they can practice at home is just by going to these free YouTube videos. In these YouTube videos here, there are 200 questions. These PDFs are the verbatim of what you find in these review YouTube videos. For example, here, this review is only about what we learned in hour 2. If you see an S here, this is just, I have 200 sentences, and I will say the sentence like, I plan to go, and they will have to make it into a question. Do I plan to go? These are all questions. If you see a P here, that refers to a photo, and the YouTube video has a photo, and I use patterns learned in hours 1 and 2, as you see here, and they answer the questions. So if you see the P, that simply means the photo. 1 to 2 simply means that you get the review of the patterns 1 to 2. At the teacher's tips here, you'll find these 2 PDFs here that reflect this pattern and this large one to show them what you want them to do. Also, if you have some Korean students, I have identified right here the exact same pattern in Korean. Now, if you have students with different nationalities, of course, this won't work. But if you're bilingual and the people you're teaching speak your native tongue also, you can try to help them with the same pattern in their own language, which reflects the feeling that they have in their own language. So that's basically how I handle the class. There is lots of time that they can review by themselves at home, by themselves if they wish, and there's lots of opportunities to become familiar. Once again, the function here is that they review what they have learned both in Lesson 1 and Lesson 2. So I hope that's a bit helpful for you. Thank you.